trip as the chairman of the Texas Democratic Party, and I made sure that I came right here to the RGB. Because for a long time, I know that you feel like you have been left out. Like I come from a neglected part of this state too. I grew up on a purple whole pea farm outside of Texarkana. And let me tell you, Democrats don't spend a lot of time out there either. I'm standing here today as the chairman of the Texas Democratic Party because a public school teacher once grabbed me by my face and told me that she thought that I was smart. And for some people, that might sound stupid. But for a kid like me, from a town like mine, with a family like ours, it meant the entire world. And that is why it is crucial that we're doing these workers' town halls across this state. Because little boys with farm callous hands and little girls who have to get their brothers and sisters out of bed and get them to this truck stop because their parents are already at work, they deserve to have advocates fighting for them every single day. Woo! This is the third time that I have been to the Valley in just the last few months. And fun fact, I haven't seen Monica anywhere. Where's Monica?
Yeah.
Anybody here seen her?
No.
Is she real? Do we know? I'm not sure. I do know that she's real because her donors and her owners in D.C., they paid big money for her, and she does their bidding.
She's in Florida.
If they ask her to. If it is to strip away your health care, if it is to fire 80,000 people from the VA, if it is to push through these tariffs that are the largest tax increase on middle-class families in my lifetime, she lines up and does whatever they tell her to do, and you get the raw end of the deal every single time. We as a party, it is a new day for the Texas Democratic Party.
Yes, it is.
And we are focusing all of our energy and our efforts on the working men and women of this state and prioritizing their issues. That means fighting for fair wages. That means fighting for basic human dignity at your job. That you are not overworked and underpaid, but beyond just the labor items. It's about consumer protection. It's about making sure that these corporations aren't constantly raking you over the coals and making sure that banks aren't gouging you on your bank fees. That's what our party's about. It was the foundational, fundamental principle of who we were as a party, were those economic issues, looking out for the working men and women that needed someone to stand on the front lines.
Tell the truth.
And over the last few years, it feels like we've been so interested in preserving institutions that we forgot a little bit about who we are. If these institutions aren't fighting to protect you and aren't fighting to protect the working men and women of this state, then who cares?
Yeah.
That's not what we're here. We're not here to protect institutions. We're here to for allowing me to come and talk to you a bit today. I also want to recognize my new executive director, Sam, who's going to be leading the charge. Sam was previously the director of our data team, and I want to make sure everyone knows that our party moving forward is laser focused on how we deliver data-driven results in these elections, and that's why Sam's going to be wonderful in that role. Here's the last point that I want to make to all of you before I pass this over, and we're going to take questions today because we aren't afraid to do that. I want all of you to understand what's at stake right now. The richest man in the world is in the White House right now, unelected, appointed by his billionaire buddy to do everything he can to take away your social safety nets, the things that are designed to make sure your kid gets an opportunity for upward economic mobility. You know what's not getting taken away? Any money that goes to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Notice that the Doge cuts, that by the way, federal spending's right now at an all-time high.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay? Those Doge cuts aren't for people like him. It's for people like us. But that government is there to fight for us. At least it should be. And that's why I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that absent members of Congress like Monica De La Cruz don't get to go back to D.C. and continue to fail.
Yeah!
pockets of every veteran, out of the pockets of every person, unless we understand that as a class, we have to stand up and fight back against the billionaires who don't give a shit about us.
Hell yeah!
And who will do their bidding. There is someone who has stood on the front lines of this fight and done her best to make sure that we had representation in D.C. And unfortunately, we weren't able to carry it across the finish line. But I'm grateful to the efforts and the work that she's been doing. I know that moving forward, even if we weren't successful in the last election, she'll be right here on the front lines with us. And I can't wait to see the great work we're going to do in other capacities, Michelle. But I want to introduce to you Michelle Vallejo, a great speaker.
Hola a todos. How's that for energy and for excitement and a new page for our Democratic Party? Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for being here today. Showing up is one of the most important parts of getting things done, of creating a better future for ourselves, our families, our region, and for our children. And today, I am joining you as not only a community member, as your former Democratic nominee for Texas 15, but also as a new mom. I have a 2.5-year-old, and I will say it has completely changed my perspective, my appreciation for women, for mothers, for families, and what this means for the fight for our communities. So thank you for showing up, unlike McAllen Monica de la Cruz. And I'm also here today, and I prepared some words because there's a lot that has been happening. And I will say that is part of their strategy, to divert, to confuse, and to discourage us from fighting back and from showing up. But we have to be relentless. We are a region full of hardworking people, veterans, teachers, immigrants, small business owners, moms and dads, and families who believe in the promise of a better future. But instead of fighting for us, Monica de la Cruz has decided to work for them, the billionaires, the extremists, and the same political forces that have made it harder and harder for South Texas to thrive, generation after generation. And let's make something clear, and I think Kendall did a really good job with that. Monica de la Cruz does not represent us.
No,
she represents the powerful, she represents the privileged, and the out-of-touch elite. Yep. She's failed our schools, backing private school vouchers that rob public classrooms of funding, supporting cuts to public libraries like the very one we are in here today. And let's talk about teachers. And I'm very, very glad that we have a teacher here today, Ms. Sylvia Tanguma, who's representing not just AFT, but the force and the voice of teachers who have organized year after year, cycle after cycle, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for you to continue doing that work. South Texas teachers pour their hearts into our kids. They poured into mine, and that's why I'm here today, honestly. Because, like Kendall, I had a teacher as well. I had multiple teachers who told me, Michelle, speak up. You are the future, and everyone else, all of your peers, are the future of this region, of this country. And so I'm very, very grateful to all of our teachers. But Monica de la Cruz refuses to fight for our teachers. She refuses to fight for higher wages, smaller class sizes, or retirement security, which is absolutely shameful. And at a time when teachers are so burned out and walking away, she's offered no solutions, only silence and sabotage. She's betrayed our veterans, voting against the PACT Act, denying benefits to those exposed to toxic burn pits. And we are also joined today by a veteran, Fred Cady from the Air Force, who is a senior airman. She stands by when they do drastic cuts to the VA and does nothing to help improve mental health resources or job security or economic prosperity for our hometown heroes. She's backed extremist policies on immigration, ignoring due process, violating basic constitutional rights, and turning border communities like ours into a political punching bag for her own personal benefit. Rather than a place of dignity and strength, she shows us as a place to be taken advantage of something less than, which is something we all know is absolutely wrong. We desperately need comprehensive immigration reform, but instead we get more chaos in the dismantling of programs and progress that our local communities and organizers have worked so hard in order to achieve. When it comes to small businesses, she's done absolutely nothing for small businesses, which we know are a backbone of our economies. She has been idle when they've slashed funds from our SBA, our Small Business Administration, even closing up our local office here, and even the one in San Antonio. So while we do have to drive many hours to other resources, she's not even allowing for those to exist. And she continues to support Trump's reckless tariffs. And as we stand here today, I don't know if y'all have checked your 401ks, but in my home alone, there has been a $10,000 cut to our 401k, or to my 401k. And I think that that is just representative of what everyone else is feeling in their homes. A slight sliver of the pain that I know our community is experiencing from one day to the next. And at the very same time, Trump is applauding that his billionaire friends like Charles Schwab is making billions of dollars from one day to the next.
Shame on you.
Absolutely.
Lock him up.
Yeah, we should.
She supports policies that hand $7 trillion in tax breaks to the ultra-rich. And what does that mean? That means undeniably cuts to Social Security, to Medicare, to Medicaid. And let me tell you something, I was on Monica's lame excuse of accountability, which was her teletown hall most recently. And when she took a question, we all know that they were pre-screened, about a cut to Medicaid, essentially Social Security and Medicare, she said, that's just a top-line number. Well, you know what that means? That number means the livelihood for our communities. That means the livelihood for our elderly, for people who are disabled, and for people who need special care, people who need the safety networks and safety nets in order to survive. And for her, she doesn't care. She absolutely does not care. And that is very, very clear to us. And most recently, we also saw that the US Navy, from their Heritage and History Command, which is a record that's supposed to exist from generation to generation, erased, quite literally, the history, the written record, the memory of Sergeant Freddie Gonzalez, Alfredo Freddie. She stood by until she heard and saw that the community was standing up and speaking out, which is what we have to do time and time again. And she wrote a weak tweet and said, he's on other websites, so don't worry. But if she's not going to stand up for the sergeant, for an American hero, for a hero of Edinburgh, Texas, of the Rio Grande Valley, how can we ever expect for her to stand up for anybody else?
We can.
And let's be honest. We know that Republicans love to say that they're standing by the Constitution or by the rule of law.
That's a
We
lie.
know very, very well that Monica de la Cruz has shown complete disregard for the Constitution and the rule of law. She supports enforcement strategies that trample on human rights. She stands by as her party uses fear and division to tear families apart and push policies that violate the very legal foundation of our country. South Texas believes in justice and in fairness and in due process. Monica believes in political theater and cruelty.
And
And Trump.
When workers in Texas, from Starbucks to Amazon, from nurses to construction workers, organize for better pay and for safer working conditions, she votes against them. She opposes the PRO Act, which is a protection at the federal level that despite what people in Texas and the misguided leaders at the state level are working against, this is something that the federal government could do to protect hardworking people. And she says no. And instead, what she supports is more tax cuts, more power, and more control to the elite. And as Congressman Greg Casar recently said, He is now the president of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, one of the largest caucuses in the U.S. House. And he is representative of the San Antonio, Austin region. Some of y'all might have seen him when he came down a few times to South Texas in the support of the Fight for Texas 15. And I will quote what he said. "We can't just name villains, we have to name the solutions." And that also means no more purity testing among ourselves. Our focus must stay where it belongs, on our real opponent, on the GOP, and the extremist billionaire-backed agenda that are forcing our communities to fight with each other. That means taxing the top 1%, closing the loopholes for corporations, and investing in workers, families, and small businesses that actually make this country run. And recently, because of the votes that came down at the House, and billions of dollars of tax cuts were proposed, and Monica voted for it, that are gonna undoubtedly hurt our communities, Leader Hakeem Jeffries proposed a one-on-one debate to Speaker Mike Johnson. And he published it publicly on Twitter, which is where I guess now is the official forum of discourse for our country. He said, "This Republican budget that just passed in the House this week would cut Medicaid, food assistance, veterans benefits to pay for giveaways to the very richest people on the planet." And I honestly feel like a broken record saying this over and over again, but that's Monica's playbook, and we can't allow her to lie anymore to our communities. To our country, when she says it's just a number. But I also want to instill some hope, because it is the people like you every single day that are deciding to show up, to organize, and to fight back that are going to make a difference. And when she says, she loves to claim this sentence specifically, "We want Hidalgo County," coming from her mouth, that is a straight lie to your face, because she has not once won in Hidalgo County.
That's right. Gerrymander to hell.
I will also say that the work done behind my campaign in the Fight for Texas 15, the past 2 cycles, has not been in vain. Our race ran close to 9 points ahead of the top of the ticket.
Yeah.
And what that means is that we are not giving up. We're showing up to make sure that we have the rightful representatives fighting for us in Congress. And so we're going to have to continue building on that work, on that energy. And I really also want to point a finger to a big win in our country, which was the court case, or the court race in Wisconsin. Because of people like you, because of organizers, and because people who have not given up and not given in. And I hope that gives us energy and a glimpse of what we could look into our future and see as an opportunity to not give up, to work with each other, and to continue striving for a better future for all of us. Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome veteran Fred Cady to the floor. I believe he has some words to share with us about the impacts that Monica's lack of representation, lack of leadership has done direct harm to our veteran community. Thank you.
I'm usually used to speaking in front of the class where I shout.
Can't hear you.
I'm a little bit afraid if I speak into this.
Can't hear you.
How do I sound now?
Yeah.
Woo!
Okay, my name is Fred Cady. As I say, I served in the United States Air Force back in the 80s and 90s, a long time ago. Before then, I was a factory worker. And then after I got out of the service, I used my GI Bill to go to school, and I've been a college educator for 30 years now. I could speak about the impact on higher education, but I'm going to talk about veterans here. The first thing I want to note, very important point, is that DOGE is going after government employees in general. And you guys might not know, people might demonize government employees for no good reason in the world. Government employees do important services, and 24% of federal employees are veterans. So only 5% of the general workforce are veterans. So if you're going to go after federal employees, just by definition, you're going to be hitting veterans harder than others. So if you can't say, well, I support our veterans, if you're going to be attacking federal employees. And these jobs are generally good jobs with good benefits and wages, and can you really say you care about workers if you're laying off federal employees? Just to kind of bring this a little bit local, I don't know how many people have been laid off here, but a lot of times when we think of federal employees, we think Washington, D.C. Not in my hometown. But collecting some figures, in District 15, we have 8,534 federal employees, and in District 34, 10,166. So that will be, a little over 3% of the workforce in District 34 and a little under here in District 15. What DOGE has been doing here is they're going after what we call low-hanging fruit. Folks that are provisional, that just started out, and they can let them go without any reason. And that's been happening at the VA. In my family, my younger brother served for 27 years. He's a retired veteran, and my sister 25 years, so they utilize VA services more than myself. And my brother said that he's also 100% disabled, not that he's in a wheelchair or anything. It just means that he receives the highest amount of financial compensation for being disabled. And he said that he had an appointment for some wellness care at a VA clinic, and he went to the appointment and said, your appointment's canceled because we've let go of the 2 people that did that. And they didn't say, well, you're not going to be able to get that care anymore. Just basically, we don't have the people that provide it. So you're already seeing some cuts in services there. Overall, you guys, I believe the number was mentioned that they're planning on cutting 83,000 VA posts. And does anyone know how many people does the VA employ as full-time staff? Any idea?
480,000.
Yeah, around. So basically, you're looking at a huge, a not so insignificant chunk of the VA workforce. How are you really supposed to provide services to veterans when you are cutting the workforce 20% or so? Also, something that maybe flew under the radar screen a bit, where DOGE said they were canceling contracts to various government agencies, the VA being one, and a lot of backlash. Basically, Trump paused the cancellation of the contracts. The VA Secretary Doug Collins, he said, well, that's really not important services. It's just we're not going to pay anyone to do our PowerPoints anymore. Liar. Or whatever. And he goes, well, actually doing a little bit more research, that's cutting care for cancer care, et cetera, et cetera. So that's on pause as we speak. Back when I was in the military, one of my sergeants used to say, this was back in the Reagan era, where they also wanted to cut government, and the mantra was, well, let's do more with less. And one of my superiors, he says, no, generally you don't do more with less, you do less with less. So if we're going to be cutting the VA workforce, expect the VA to do less. And then, when I was in Vietnam was 15 years. In the past, we had not yet entered Afghanistan and Iraq. I was in during the Gulf War. And when I went to school, I got my bachelor's at the University of Texas at El Paso, and I worked at a VA clinic as a work study, and basically met the staff, very dedicated folks, most are veterans. And back then, well, the Vietnam veteran was, we were used to dealing with a Vietnam veteran. But from what I garnered from my brother and sister, once we had the Iraq War, the Afghan War, basically the VAs kind of deluged with new folks that needed services. And also something that is very important, I believe Michelle pointed out, the PACT Act that passed in 2002, which makes it easier for those that were exposed to toxic chemicals and burn pits, etc., to get VA care. And from what I understand, basically a lot more folks are seeking VA care because of the PACT Act. And basically, do we want to be cutting 83,000 folks from the workforce? How are we going to meet our obligations to those folks seeking services? So none of this, it's not done yet. So our job is to basically pressure politicians to ensure this does not happen, because it would have a bad impact on veterans, folks that put their lives on the line, and basically did so with the feeling that the government, society would help take care of them. Also, along those lines, as a veteran, we're kind of honored, thank you for your service, but government employees in general, if you are, like I have close friends that basically have been laid off for taking Elon Musk's buyout, working for the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Those are public servants too that are under attack. They may not take the same oath that we as veterans take, but they serve our country, society, and do very good work. And basically, they need someone to look out for them as well. One of my friends had worked for TSA, and he said that he took the same oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America, which leads me to another point as a veteran that concerns me quite a bit, is President Trump's politicization of who he chooses to advise him or be chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, where basically the upper echelon of the military has done a good job of being nonpartisan. That's, as a professor of political science, basically very important for our democracy, that the military serve who is in office and the Constitution. Their oath is to the Constitution. And we had a chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That post was created after World War II to advise the president on military matters. And basically, once things got settled down, it became very common that the chair would kind of serve in different administrations. The terms would stagger, if you will, so we could have continuity. And basically, almost all presidents honored that. They hit office, maybe the chair that they inherited was not someone who they would have chosen per se, but they stuck with the other guy. If you want to just maybe an anecdote that you guys would know, there's no secret that President Clinton and Colin Powell did not get along that well. But Colin Powell served a couple of years in the Clinton administration, stepped down, Clinton chose someone he wanted to. So for President Trump to say, well, he doesn't think CQ Brown, General Brown, is loyal enough to him. Well, CQ Brown, very loyal to the Constitution. So what President Trump should have done was let C.Q. Brown finish his term and then choose the person he wanted to choose, rather than, well, I need someone who's loyal to me, and then pick someone who the statute basically said is not really eligible because you have to be a 4-star, but again, so that's problematic for our democracy, and that should concern us all, that the president is putting loyalty to himself in front of loyalty to the Constitution and loyalty to our community, the country, and humankind.
Smells like
So,
fascism.
I could go on, but I'm going to turn it over here to a teacher, Sylvia Tanguma, longtime teacher at McAllen ISD, and now she is the president of the McAllen Federation of Teachers. So without further ado.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to use this little podium though because I have some notes. And I was asked to speak on what effects the dismantling the Department of Education would do, and or what effects it would have on our community. So before I start that, I want to say that I am the proud parent of 2 college students that are products of McAllen Public Schools. And they were very well prepared by our public school system. One of them is graduating with a Bachelor's of Science from UT in Austin. And my oldest is graduating with a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. And if this dismantling continues, will our community's kids, our kids that still have to go through the system, will they have that same opportunity? And that is exactly what we have to ask ourselves. Because what we are looking at, we're looking at loss of funding, cuts of billions in federal aid. Programs affected would be Pell Grant programs that some financially underserved students may need. Special education, Title I, low-income schools. We would have no one to enforce civil rights laws such as race, gender, and disability. Fair funding across schools would be gone. Poor or underserved communities could fall behind. No national standards. Education becomes inconsistent across states. So some kids get top-tier learning while others get the bare minimum. Harder to transfer, graduate, or compete for jobs and for college acceptance. No accountability. To me, that's like the worst part, because no one is checking to see if schools are actually helping students learn, right? Because they are our future and we have to depend on that. Bad schools could slip through the cracks with no consequences. And who takes over? Once the Department of Ed is gone, who takes over? Is it the state? Is it local districts? Is it going to be the federal government? Who's going to take over? So there's really, right now, there would be no coordination, inefficiency, duplicated efforts, and major gaps in coverage. So shutting down the Department of Education hurts poor and vulnerable students. It creates nationwide chaos and makes education more unfair and uneven. So it's like pulling the power cord on the country's education system. And that's one thing that we don't want to do. I want to emphasize what it would do with special ed services, because I think that is going to be the one that's hit the most, because it is being targeted. And so individualized education programs, we call them IEPs in school. They are legally required personalized plans that outline specific learning goals, services, and accommodations. Without federal oversight, schools may stop offering IEPs or drastically reduce their quality. And we have to remember that just here in Texas, just a few years back, we were told as teachers, you really can't have that many special ed students. And we were thinking, but they need help. Yeah, but you can't. You just can't have that many. That was something that the Department of Ed came in, they stepped in, and they fixed that. Because it was a whole big lawsuit that was happening here in Texas where the state wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And it was the Department of Ed that came in and stepped in and fixed that for us here in Texas. So also specialized services including speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavioral support, and counseling would be reduced, if not gone. These services may be cut or inconsistently delivered depending on state or local funding. Parental rights and due process, early intervention, and transition services for teens. This helps high school students with disabilities prepare for life after graduation. Job training, college readiness, independent living. These federal required services often get overlooked without oversight. And so if children may go undiagnosed or diagnosed but left without support, how are they going to live the rest of their life, right? And that's one of the big things that we have to look at. And all of this, you have to look at the Department of Ed as the referee, right? They're kind of in the middle trying to mediate between federal and state. And that is one thing that is very, very challenging right now that everybody has to look at, and we really have to contact the legislator about this. Parents in low resource areas may not have the tools to fight for their kids. Some schools may refuse enrollment or push out students who need costly support, right? And I have this, and I'm not gonna go through all of this, but this is a flyer that AFT has put out, National AFT has put out at the national level, and I'm just going to hit these targets. The Department of Ed supports over 5.6 million kids across 9,000 Texas K through 12 schools. It would be $1.8 billion for Title I schools that they disperse. I just want to say, if right now Texas is not being fully funded, imagine when the federal government gives everything to the state for them to fund us. Well, where will we be and what will we get, right? They developed the workforce with $209 million for career and technical education. That's our CTE programs. $376 million to ensure people who want a job, including those with disabilities, have the skills and access to the services they need. $2.2 million in competitive funding to help bring high-paying jobs to rural communities and to train workers. Invest in 2- and 4-year colleges and trade development. $131 billion in federal student loans supporting over 3,800,000 Texans pursuing education beyond a high school diploma, including first-generation college students. And of course, improves our schools and strengthens our communities. $17.6 million to support our kids' mental health and learning needs, which we have found is very much needed. $21 million to address the teacher shortage by hiring more teachers and support staff while we face, closing schools, because I know that this is not part of the Department of Ed, but that's what we are fighting right now, those vouchers, because we need more teachers. Personally, I was at 2 schools that closed down when charter schools came in, and so I know the effect, because I had to transfer, right? And with that transfer, positions move and change. And so that's already there, and unfortunately, with vouchers, that will really gut the public school system. And with that said, I have a huge ask for you. Right outside, I want to see if before you leave, you can please stop by our AFT table to send a letter to your legislator today. We are hearing there may be a vote on the Texas House floor as early as this Wednesday for vouchers. We have a little QR code that we want you to scan. We need to flood their emails today, this weekend. We need to flood those phones. Thank you very much. And And if you want more information, our AFT, McAllen AFT office is right down the street here on Buddy Owens. Stop by, we have somebody there all the time, all day. I'm there now that I've taken on this job. And with that said, I have the proud privilege of introducing the legal advisor for Hidalgo County Democratic Party, Laurel McLeish.
Good afternoon. We are here today to remember what happens when those in power forget their responsibility to the people. Under the Trump administration, we witnessed a calculated ideological assault on America's most basic promise, that in the richest country in the world, no one should go hungry, no one should be denied health care, and no one should be left behind. I want to talk about something that affects millions of Americans. Our nation's most critical safety net programs, SNAP, Medicaid, and Medicare. Recent proposals suggest significant reductions in funding for Medicare and SNAP. Specifically, the House Republican Budget Blueprint directs the Energy and Commerce Committee to identify $880 billion in savings over a decade, with popular health care programs like Medicare, Medicaid falling under its jurisdictions. These cuts could have devastating effects on our county. Hidalgo County and governmental entities within the county could lose more than $45 million in federal funding under the proposed budget. During his time in office, Trump has repeatedly proposed cuts to these lifelines, despite their crucial role in keeping families healthy, fed, and secure. Let's start with SNAP. This is the program that helps low-income individuals and families put food on the table. Under Trump, his administration finalized a rule in 2019 that tightened work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents. This change was estimated to remove up to 700,000 people, and that was just the beginning. Year after year, his proposed budgets called for deep cuts, tens of billions of dollars slashed from food assistance. They framed it as cutting waste, but let's be honest, it's not about efficiency, it's about cruelty. It is about punishing poverty instead of solving it. Where's Monica? Where's Monica when our neighbors and families will be losing their health care? Now, Medicaid, the program that ensures health care for 1 in 4 Americans and seniors in nursing homes. Trump's budget proposals call for over $900 billion in Medicaid cuts over a decade. The proposed budget would put 206,885 South Texans at risk of losing Medicaid health care coverage, including over 144 children under the age of 19. And over 24,000 seniors over the age of 65. But where is Monica? Why hasn't she stood up to Trump and the Republicans and say, no, I will not vote to cut health care benefits for children, for people with disabilities, and for the elderly? And what about Medicare? Trump repeatedly promised he would save Medicare, but actions speak louder than words. His budget proposals include hundreds of billions of dollars in cuts to Medicare spending, shifting costs to seniors, and threatening the long-term health of a program that Americans pay into their entire life. But where is Monica? Why is she siding with big corporations and the wealthy instead of with seniors? We must remember, SNAP, Medicaid, and Medicare are not handouts. They are promises. They are safety nets. What generations of policy built on the idea that in the richest country in the world, no one should go hungry, go without health care, or be abandoned in old age. So let's speak the truth. Cutting these programs doesn't just hurt the economy, it hurts people, real people, our neighbors, and our families. It's up to us to protect these programs from those who treat them like line items instead of lifelines. Thank you. Back to Richard.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it so much. So, as a matter of fact, the Hidalgo County Democratic Party, we got together, some of us, and we decided we wanted to give a small little personal donation over to the Texas State Party. Thank you, our new chairman, for coming down. So I'd like to hand him a check that some of us put together for you. Yeah. Thank you for your work. Well, we appreciate that. I know that earlier today, guys, as you were coming in, there was some questions that were being put in some note cards. And so I know that us three are going to answer some of those before we close up. So we were ready to go.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eva Garcia, Communications Director for the Hidalgo County Democratic Party and Precinct Chair. First question. Bear with me. They are firing all of these people, so why aren't they reporting the new unemployment numbers? I'm sure they all haven't found new jobs yet. Would that be more?
Well, my understanding is that the unemployment numbers get reported quarterly, right? So we haven't had an opportunity to see those. You know, what they're doing right now is playing politics with people's livelihoods. They're playing politics with people's ability to just, I mean, they're pulling the rug out of people and their ability to feed their families and exist. And so whether or not we're seeing statistics come out, it doesn't matter to me what some number report says that comes out of DC. What matters to me is that we are doing right by people and that we are doing right by working folks. So I haven't seen those numbers. I'm confident that it will come out and show that there is a spike there. But regardless of what those numbers end up being, it is immoral, it is wrong, it is unjust to mess with these folks' livelihoods, but also it is important to know the federal government is not a business. The federal government to provide services. Right?
Yes.
And each of those people, there is not just a salary in their home that they impact. There are services that they provide to you. There are services that they provide to people who need their help. Yes. So this is a two-pronged attack. It's attacking folks who have given their lives to public service, and it's attacking the individuals who reap the benefits from the services that they're providing.
All right. This is for Richard or Michelle. 9 UTRGV students have had their visas revoked as of this week. Is the Democratic Party providing resources to these students, and how can the party work to prevent these revocations from increasing in numbers? UTRGV Senior.
That is a very important question, because the targets are happening right here in our home to students who are enriching our communities. So many people in South Texas are not able to even leave the checkpoint. They're not able to leave north of Falfurrias. And it's important that we allow them a global perspective. And when we have international students who attend our universities, attend our colleges, that enriches our community tenfold. But right now what's happening is there is also a scapegoating of people who have spoken up, who have shared their opinions about certain issues. And my understanding, because so far what I've read and what I've heard, is that there's no reason that has been shared as to why these students were targeted. But it is speculated that it is because of something that they've posted on social media, why they've been targeted. So I'm very concerned for the administration of UTRGV, because this is also on their hands. And we need to make sure that people in office, but also people in leadership positions, make the right decisions to protect our community members. Democratic Party, we need to set an example. Right now, our country is lacking leadership, is lacking vision. And really, I feel that as a calling to stand up, to speak up, and to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Michelle has a lot more tact than I do. I grew up in a barn, so give me a. What I'll say is, we've heard for years Trump and all of his buddies walking around saying that they don't have a problem with immigrants. They just want them to do it the right way. These kids did it the right way.
Amen.
For themselves here. I don't know whether he did this because he has just absolute disdain for the First Amendment and your First Amendment rights, or because he is a full-blown racist. But for whichever reason,
He's a racist. He's a fascist.
He wants to be a dictator.
That's right. Next question for Richard and for Kendall. How do you plan to build up the Texas Democrat Party?
So I can tell you what we're doing and now how we're going to be helping each other. So at the local level, just recently our precinct chairs passed a agenda item that allowed us to create subcommittees within the party. These subcommittees were intended and designed to expand the party to include more people. If you're not a precinct chair, it's okay. These committees are open to everybody that wants to serve. For example, some of these are messaging. Some of it is outreach. Some of it has to do with voter registration. Some of it has to do with creating bylaws for our party. There is a place to serve for everybody. So these committees will allow us to expand on the party. And the next step that we are talking about doing is now creating Democratic clubs across Hidalgo County. That will work by regionalizing our party into Edinburgh, McAllen, the West, the PSJ area, and the Precinct 1 area. That is going to be open to everybody, because when it comes time for us to be working year-round, and especially next year when the general election begins, we don't want to be waiting for people to come in. We want to have our systems already in place with the machine already moving. So I would recommend anybody here, we do have some sign-up sheets, if you feel that you would like to be a part of any organization, any committee, or any club, please let us know. We are actively looking for that. And Kendall and I have already spoken about how Hidalgo County and the state are going to be coordinating, so I'd rather let Kendall take over on that.
Yeah, and let me just start by saying, I'm fully aware that most of you did not come here to talk about inter-party work, right? So I'm going to keep this as brief as I can. Happy to talk to anybody who'd like to. I want to make sure we're focusing really hard on this issues about working families. But what I'll say is, it is a new day in the Texas Democratic Party that understands that we don't just take punches, we throw them too. That we
Hell yeah!
that we show up all across this state, not ignoring places that we haven't traditionally been successful, and that we do everything we can as an entity to be as helpful as we can to the people that are doing work on the ground. What does that mean to you? If you came here today, maybe you've never been active in party work before. Maybe it's something you're open to exploring. In these times we live in right now, check your imposter syndrome at that door. It does not matter if you know what a precinct chair even is. We're here to help you and through that process. Did you know that half of the precinct chair spots for the entire state of Texas are vacant?
Yes.
Did you know that 20% of counties in the state of Texas don't even have a county party? Okay? So we are working right now to build from the ground up. If you get this inkling that I have got to do more, I just don't know what that means. We're here to help walk you through what that could mean. Please reach out to folks like Richard so that we can do that. We also have a year-round organizing director where we've been doing phone banks and canvassing. We're going to be doing it year-round, whether we're in the middle of an election or not, because we need to show up not just when it's election time, but we've got to build these relationships.
Yes.
500-page book about what we're going to do. I'm going to spare you because you seem like nice folks. But catch me after this. I'll talk to you about it in more detail. And I'm so excited about the party we're about to do.
I just want to add something to that as well. But yes, I also want to say thank you and also encourage people who are working at the grassroots level. We have Mothers for Democracy who's done a lot of work. That has done amazing work. We have national organizations, not just like AFT, but Mothers Demand Action, and also Human Rights Campaign. We have a lot of energy and power and love, not just inside South Texas, but for South Texas at the state and national level. And I'm very encouraged by our new leadership because I believe we're going to be able to work together more effectively and better than ever. So thank you.
Progressive Democrats of America. Progressive Democrats of America. pdamerica.org. I'm a member.
I was elected from the Progressive Caucus, and so I tell you, I'm so thrilled that y'all are here, and I'm excited to work with y'all.
All right, also the RGB Democrats, they're here right now.
Stonewall.
Stonewall.
There's lots of great groups. I know the RGB Stonewall group's killing it. I just want to say, part of it being a new day is understanding that we're on a team.
Same team.
Are on a mission, and that is not a political mission. It's an ideological mission to deliver the things we've talked about today for people that are counting on us.
That's right.
Okay?
Thank you.
There is not enough time for us to get this wrong. We have to get it right because we haven't gotten it right for too long. If we miss this moment, you understand what those repercussions are. So, we are on a team, every one of us. If there is a Democrat that you don't think is 100% great, maybe they're just 40% great, we're focusing in on that 40%. We're all working together to accomplish what we can. There is no time to waste.
The DACO DNC and MB fundraising disparity in the Texas 15, what is your assessment as to why? How can we improve? Oh, Michelle, I hope that's for you.
Could you repeat the question just so I make sure I answer specifically?
Okay, for both of you. Fundraising disparity in Texas 15, what is your assessment as to why and how can we improve?
Absolutely. So money, unfortunately, is a big part of having the resources and the armory in order to fight back against millions and millions of dollars. And while we've had a target on our back here in South Texas, redistricting has done a number. And there is a lawsuit going in place, finally going to see its day in court this year, that is going to challenge the lines that have whittled down the Latino vote. It is wrong. When the state of Texas became a Latino majority state, that the most Latino district became less Latino. There's been a lot of manipulation and a lot of harm done to districts like ours and communities like ours. And so we can't lose vision. We have to keep fighting. I mentioned the fight for the Wisconsin court case because it was a specific win for Democrats and a specific loss for Elon Musk, who put millions and millions of dollars. And that just shows that people power, organizing, year after year, cycle after cycle, really does work. So we have to continue building on the work that's been done, and we have to make sure that we elect the right people.
And also, I want to remind everybody, there's going to be new energy on the ballot this time because we're going to be fighting against Greg Abbott. And now, what was just announced, we're going to be fighting against Ken Paxton as well.
Woo!
To add to that, you know, it's
Don't
no
much
secret
care about
that
porn
the Republican
either.
Party spends
What a choice,
millions
corn
and
out.
millions and millions of dark money down here in South Texas. Is there anyone think of any reason other than pure greed why money from Georgia or Mississippi or Alabama is down here in Hidalgo County?
We took
It's
pictures.
basically because the Republicans want to pump as much resource into our community, into our town, to take it over. Not at a local level, but at a bigger level, a state level, a federal level. Look, Texas 15 right now is on the new DNC's most likely to flip watch, okay? Whoever that person may be, we need to make sure that we stand behind them as strong and as fiercely as possible, because we need to get our old buddy right here out of Washington, guys. The DNC knows this, Washington knows it. They are gonna put some money down here. We don't know how it goes, that is completely up to them. But when it comes to us down here, there's a misconception that you have to give a lot of money or a big amount to be useful or to make a difference. That's absolutely not true. If you remember when Beto O'Rourke, our good friend Beto, ran for Senate, he was taking $5 donations, $10 donations, $3 donations, but across the big scale, that money adds up. And so we want to get funds down here and everybody be a part of putting this to use. Every little bit helps. And it's whether you decide to donate to a candidate, you decide to donate to the party, or donate to any of the other organizations that were mentioned here earlier today, it doesn't matter. We can all use it. Just like Kendall said, we're all on the same team, we all have the same goal. And so guys, we need to just keep our eyes on the prize, and that is flipping 15, that is getting a U.S. Senator, once we have to deal with Ken Paxton, and that is building the infrastructure to finally get rid of these maniac Republicans.
So, we have a lot of questions, but it's already getting close to 2 o'clock, and Kendall has to be rushed off to a Zoom meeting and then another meeting and so on. So the last question is, I am a retired educator who believes that education is the great equalizer in a free society. The current administration is dismantling the Department of Education at an alarming speed. What is the Democratic Party doing to safeguard the civil rights of our children with disabilities and the Pell Grants division at church and state?
So there's a couple of different paths that we can take here, right? I mean, let's be honest. The situation we're facing is grim. We don't have a lot of these levers of control. The things that we can do is take to the streets and lead these types of protests, these types of town halls where we're engaging and being active. There's also a litigation piece here. And we're committed to trying to figure out what we can do through the judicial system to try to preserve what we can. That fight's hitting us in Texas on 2 different fronts. Not only is it hitting us on the federal level, but it's hitting us on a state level. Make no mistake, whether they call them school vouchers or ESAs or whatever they want to call it, they are a thinly veiled attempt to privatize your public schools and tear them apart brick by brick. They rural kids, kids of color, kids from low-income families, kids with special needs. They are nothing more than Greg Abbott's attempt to continue to shut down schools across the state. They are shutting down at an alarming rate. And I would like to point out that they are not shutting down in affluent areas. They are not shutting down in white areas. They are shutting down predominantly in communities of color and in low-income communities because, simply put, it's about who's showing up to vote. That's who they care about, right? That's who they're prioritizing. We are trying to prioritize everyone and their ability to access high-quality public education and their ability to achieve the American dream of what once was. all of that is to say that next week is the biggest fight that we have seen yet on schools. If you live in a district that is represented by a Republican, if you live in a district that is represented by a Democrat, you need to be calling your state representative. Because don't assume that just because someone is a Democrat, they're gonna do the right thing. Sometimes Democrats don't do the right thing, right?
Obviously.
And we're here to try to make sure we're holding folks accountable, make sure that they do. And we can essentially count on the fact that Republicans will always do the wrong thing these days. So, this week, more than ever, call state representatives to let them know that you oppose school vouchers, you oppose ESAs, Education Saving Account, and you want to keep public dollars in public schools. This bill that they are voting on is similar to one that passed in Arkansas. And the bill that passed in Arkansas, 95% of people who utilized those vouchers already had their kids in private schools. It was an entitlement program for rich people. It's welfare for the well-off, where they are trying to help rich people get discounts, coupons to put their kids in private schools, where all the rest of us have to foot the bill for that on the backs of our kids. Your kid is going to lose their opportunity to get high-quality education and lift themselves out and accomplish whatever they want to in their life. If this passes this week, please make those phone calls.
Michelle, thank you so much, and thank all of you for being here, guys. Look, remember this empty chair. Remember it next year when we start getting ready to campaign against her. Remember that she never showed up, she never has, she never will. If you want to be involved with any organization, with the party, with the state, with whoever, please reach out to us and let us know. We'd love to get you in this fight with us, guys. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll have another town hall sometime again. Thank you.
You meant.
Everybody, really quickly, if you want to be a part of a big group selfie, please stand up in place.